CURES is sponsored by Wheeler Health's Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.
Helping you lead a healthier life. This is CARES Cures.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the CURES Show, where we explore cutting-edge wellness for our mind, body, and spirit. I'm Kara Sundlin. Did you know 2 million women enter menopause every year? And 8 to 10 years before that, you've got perimenopause. And when people think of menopause, they might think hot flashes, but that's really only the tip of the iceberg. We're talking about brain fog, insomnia, weight gain, anxiety, heart palpitations, mood issues, not feeling like yourself, and more. Many women don't even realize that these are all related to massive hormone changes that we all are going to go through. Tamsen Fadal is a former Emmy award-winning news anchor who is now on a mission to make sure women can go through menopause feeling knowledgeable and empowered. She's the executive producer of this new documentary, M Factor, Shredding the Silence on Menopause. And to the world, it just premiered on PBS, and the author of the new book, How to Menopause, Take Charge of Your Health, Reclaim Your Life, and Feel Even Better Than Before. I want to welcome Tamsen to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, gosh, thank you so much for having me.
And, you know, I said that I actually was a fan of your content on Instagram before we even learned about the movie. But the reason I think so many people in our age group, and I'm talking anywhere from like 35 on up, are turning to Instagram is because there's so little information out there with our doctors. And I do this. I have doctors on speed dial about perimenopause and menopause. Why is that? Why is there so little information for women?
Isn't that amazing, right?
Right.
It's amazing that we kind of whisper about it and have it within our own communities to try to figure out what's going on. You know, there's been a lot of misinformation over the years. There was a big study 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, that really led women down a very confusing path, trying to understand hormone therapy and then understanding menopause and menopause. Before that, we were kind of ticking along okay. I think what's interesting about this time in our lives is that, yes, social media is a great way to get information. Also, you know, you want to make sure you have good information and the right information. But unfortunately, the medical system has really left us out in so many ways. We get past a certain age and we just kind of fall off the radar, and that's not okay. We're living longer and longer than ever before, and we're going through menopause, sometimes 7, 10 years in perimenopause to menopause, like you said. So we have a lot of things that are going on during that time, and we shouldn't be suffering.
Yeah, and that's the thing. This movie really raises the awareness about the suffering. It's really chock full of new science, life-changing advice, so much so that doctors who watch this film, The M Factor, will actually get continuing education credit because so many of them didn't learn much about menopause in med school.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for this part. You know, it was important for us to do a film so we could share it with women, but it was also important for us to help doctors. A lot of doctors don't get training, even OBGYNs. Some OBGYNs get a month of training in medical school. Somi Javed, you just saw right there, is one of them that, talked to us about that. And that's really concerning, but it really explains why women feel very confused or ignored or invisible when they go into some doctor's offices and a doctor says, it's just this is your time of your life. This is kind of what happens. You'll get through it like all women get through it. Well, that's not okay. There are some real long-term health consequences if we don't pay attention to what's going on with our body. Hot flashes are not just a joke. Not sleeping at night is not funny. Brain fog can be very debilitating. So it was important for us to take the film and be able to use it as a learning tool as well. So yes, there's a webinar that we have that's set up. It's now been recorded where doctors can earn a certain number of CME, continuing medical education credits toward the renewal of their medical license.
You know, I want to tell people we're going to get to it all, right? Because you're doing it all, the lifestyle, the HRT, all of the different things. We're going to get to it. But, I want to start with you because you used to do what I do and you took a hard pivot and you really have become passionate about filling this gap of information that women really don't know about. And it actually really affected you personally from a career standpoint, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was sitting at an anchor desk similar to what you're doing right now, and I had this intense hot flash come over me. It was in the evening news during a commercial break. My heart racing out of control. I couldn't catch my breath. I'd been having brain fog, and I'd been having sleepless nights, and I'd been having a lot of odd symptoms, but I'd never pinpointed them to menopause or perimenopause because I thought I was too young at the time. I was 48. And I was let off of the set because I knew I wasn't going to make it through the next part of the newscast, and led to the bathroom and promptly dropped down to the floor. And when I left there and went into the next week, I was like, what in the world happened? I had no idea we were talking about menopause. And I went, from one doctor to another. One said it was stress, another one put me on antidepressants. I ended up at my OBGYN and did some blood work, and I got 4 words back my patient portal, said, update in menopause, any questions? And that was it. And those 4 words really changed my life. They started me down a road of, one, trying to understand it, 2, learning that I was not unique by any stretch of the imagination, and then 3, realizing that so many other women had such a lack of information through no fault of our own, and then doctors on top of that. So, this has become maybe one of the biggest stories of my lifetime in terms of being able to share what I'm learning and try to share as many resources as I can with other women.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly make a big, one part of the movie talks about that we sort of make a big deal about puberty. We're helping our daughters.
Yeah.
I have a teenager. Then we make a big deal about having babies and getting married. And then like menopause, I'm like, don't say the M word, yeah.
Right.
And I have to admit, I think I sort of felt like that too. And I'm 49, and I thought, oh my gosh, like nobody worries about this in their 40s. And then, whoa, you realize the end of my 40s, I was having symptoms like you, and I had no idea that it could even be anything related to perimenopause or menopause. What really surprised you as you went down this path of trying to shed light on this topic?
Yeah, I think there were a number of things. I think how we all come by it so individually. All the symptoms are different depending on, who you are, depending on the age, just depending on you. It's very it's different. It's individual. I could have hot flashes and brain fog. You could have night sweats, and you could have itchy skin, and it would all be perimenopause or menopause. So I think that was disturbing when I found there were 34 plus symptoms, which now they have tracked up to 100 symptoms of menopause or perimenopause, which was stunning. And then I think the other big thing was a lack of information and the fact that we really don't have a plan to put out more information, which was the reason for the documentary, because we thought, well, we don't have 20 years to do a new study, but we do have time to put together a film with at least what we know right now. And that was important. And I will say that the reception that we've received from different communities who took the film and are doing community screenings with it, and bringing in 100 and 200 women that want to watch the film and then talk afterwards is really inspiring to me. It makes me know that there's a lot of need for this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this film. It is debuting on PBS, and the nice thing about PBS is they usually keep the documentaries under an hour. I know if you're thinking about this, you're a busy woman probably. You're thinking, I don't have all this time, but you have to really educate yourself about this. And I feel like here, I've done so many shows on anything to do with midlife, like why is your metabolism changing? What lifestyle changes do you need to make that what worked for you in your 20s is not going to work for you in your 40s, and yet all of it could kind of stem from the fact that you have these major hormone changes that nobody's really talking about. I love my OB/GYN, but when I went to him and said, do I want to do HRT or whatever, he said, oh, most people don't want it. But now there's new studies are showing that HRT, the fear that we were told a generation ago, the data really supports that a lot of women could greatly benefit from some sort of hormone replacement therapy. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And our film is not to advocate for anything except for women, but hormone replacement therapy, or hormone therapy as it's called now, really has been found to be one of the most effective ways to treat these menopause symptoms, especially hot flashes. And there are a lot of long-term health consequences that can come if you're not paying attention and taking care of things. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody wants to do it. So what we want to make sure we always have other solutions to help women out, but to not even be able to allow to have that conversation for your doctor to say, oh, a lot of people don't want to do it, versus here's what it is. Here's how it could benefit you, and yes or no, it could be good for you, and you are able to take it or not able to take it. Those are really important conversations. I've never seen any other thing where you go into a doctor's office and there are so many opinions about how you should be treated.
Yeah, even some of the top doctors in this field were saying that their own doctors didn't like how they were treating themselves after
Yeah.
doing all. So it is really cutting edge research. But let's talk about, I want to get to HRT. Let's talk about the lifestyle. You talk on your Instagram account where millions of people follow you about just some of the basic changes you had to make even before you decided to do HRT. So as women, what do we need to be doing in these times of perimenopause, menopause, lifestyle wise?
Yeah, lifestyle was, it's very different than when I was 20 years old. When I was 20, I was like, I'm going to the gym, I'm sweating it all out. And if there's a big pool of sweat underneath the treadmill, all's going to be good. My gym routine has changed. How I sleep has definitely changed. Strength training has been huge to me. Lifting heavy weights, it's a big deal. I do it 3 times a week. When it comes to sleep, I used to be the person that would say, I don't need that much sleep. I'm fine. I can exist on 4 hours. I'll be all good if I'll drink some caffeine. I don't do that anymore. I try to go to bed at the same time every night. I try to get up at the same time. I get outside in the morning and, get some fresh air right away. And I'm paying attention to what I eat, not to, diet, because that's not the word that I want around me, but really to fuel my body. And so that it's helping in so many other ways. I'm paying attention to things like osteoporosis and heart issues and brain health and trying to fuel myself a little bit differently. And I used to think taking care of myself was a luxury, like I didn't really have time for. And now I realize I don't have time not to do that.
Right. If you're so busy, do you have time to why don't you have the time to do the one thing or in this
Yeah.
case, many things. There are many things that we probably should be doing that matter, from mindfulness to eating well. Let's just start with breakfast. That's a challenge for a lot of busy moms, a lot of busy career women. And I know you have something that you do almost every day. You call it your hot girl smoothie, but that doesn't have to take a lot of time. But what are some things we should be fueling ourselves with, even just first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, protein is a big one. I would never paid attention to protein either. I was always looking at calories. Protein's a huge one, and that's why I do the smoothie, because I can dump a scoop of protein in there and it's easy. I can dump a bunch of spinach in there. It's easy. I can switch things out if I don't have ingredients and I didn't go grocery shopping. But protein's a big one for me, and I've really tried to, there's a lot of different numbers out there. I try to get like 25 grams of protein for each one of my meals. Not always easy. That's definitely what I try to do. I try to stay away from the sugars, and I try to limit the caffeine, though I have to admit I'm not great at that. I try the best I can, but I'm not great at it. Some of the other things that I've really incorporated into, how I'm eating omega-3s, that has been huge. We always hear about dark green leafy vegetables. Big deal for me. And I try to do things where if I'm cooking it the night before, I can have it the next day too, because that way I'm just kind of doubling up and, I don't know, saving myself the headache of trying to figure out what I'm going to eat that next day.
Yeah, I mean, because we want it to be easy. You're often at a really busy time of your
It
life.
has to be.
But women actually, unfortunately, the conversation around menopause and older women in general has not been one of value. And it's sort of taboo. I think even among women with their friends, they don't want to mention like, oh, are you going through menopause? You're starting to change that. But why is it so important that we reframe the negativity? And what is there to look forward to for women who are thinking, oh gosh, I'm just getting old?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think aging is a privilege. I think that to be this age and to be so excited about what's next is really important. This is not a time where we're not relevant or invisible or our best years are behind us. And I think that we have to not only teach ourselves that, but teach the women that are coming up behind us that as well. I mean, this is a pretty incredible time where you can do incredible things. I don't believe that there's just 1 or 2 chapters in our lifetime. I think also the media has not really done us any favors by just putting spotlights on youth and saying we're trying to anti-age and we're always trying to be who we were when we were 20. I don't want to be who I was when I was 20 years old. I had a lot of pressure. I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't know who I was. And I kind of like the person I am now. I kind of like the fact that I understand what's important. I'm living my someday today, and I'm looking forward to whatever comes next.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Mary Claire Haver is a top menopause expert featured in this film. Many of you out there, if you're into this, you might know her book. The New Menopause is out there. She says for most women, HRT is extremely protective and beneficial, especially done in this window of opportunity. I know you've decided to take advantage of this. Can you expand on that for all the women who are wondering, should I be doing HRT? Give us the basics.
Yeah, listen, I lost my mother to breast cancer when she was 51 and I was 20 years old. So I really didn't, I had a lot of misinformation. I thought I couldn't do HRT. I was worried about breast cancer my whole life. It hung over me like a cloud. So when I hit menopause, first thing I said was like, oh, I can't do that. That's not even possible. I lost my mother to breast cancer. Well, that doesn't turn out to be one of the contraindicators to that. That doesn't mean I can't do it. Family history is not a contraindicator that says you cannot do hormone therapy. I mean, the best thing to be able to do, and what the research and what the science shows, is if you're going to do that, you can do that in your perimenopause years to make sure that you've got that estrogen and that progesterone. And so that's what I decided to do. I'm on estrogen, progesterone. I do a compounded testosterone, and there is this window of opportunity that they say is around 10 years, but from the time you go into menopause. But I think we're learning a lot more about that. We're learning a lot more about what we can do beyond that. We're also learning a lot more with regard to, a lot of people think they have to stop hormone therapy, but most of the top doctors say, like, I'm doing this till the day I die, till the day I die.
Yeah.
So I do feel like there's still a lot for us to learn. There's not enough when it comes to research or dollars being put into things, but it's critically important that we get to that next level. And I'm hoping that's what that film does. I hope it not only moves conversation within communities, but it moves conversation on national levels so that we can look for more dollars, look for more research, have more information. And we're not saying, like, gosh, I hope that's the right answer. But for me, hormone therapy has been extremely effective. I had debilitating brain fog. I had really bad hot flashes and night sweats. And it's really been a game changer for me.
Yeah, and you wrote a book. It's out now, How to Menopause, Take Charge of Your Health, Reclaim Your Life, and Feel Even Better Than Before. There's the cover right now. I think people can get this everywhere. Do you walk people through? I mean, there's so much information out there, so it's kind of like we don't want to overwhelm people, but even just starting with the self-care aspect and then that decision of HRT, which I know you might have to advocate because a lot of doctors are not gonna, they're a little behind right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right about that. I mean, that's a lot of the book. I'm not a doctor. I interview 42 experts for the book. It was important for me, though, to go beyond the doctor's office and go into the workplace, go into the bedroom, go into all these other areas that menopause affects. We can't just say, like, okay, once I'm finished with the doctor's office, I'm going to go home and my menopause is left there. That's not how it works. And so it was important for me to teach women to advocate for themselves if they're not comfortable doing it, to have scripts to go into the doctor's office with. Once they go beyond that, to talk about sex, to talk about brain health, sleep, how to eat, dressing differently. I mean, like style is a big thing now. It's very different. I think about things very differently than I did when I was 20 and 25 years old. And then the workplace and relationships are two really big parts of this. The rate of divorce during this time is much higher than it is in other times in your life. And so I really wanted to address some of the things beyond the medical parts of menopause. And I kept coming back to the phrase, like, we don't know how to menopause. And so that's where the title came from.
How to Menopause. I love it. Well, the big thing is we talk a lot on this show and throughout the news of raising awareness about the mental health struggles that so many people are going through. And yet that is a big symptom that people might not realize, that if you're having low mood, depression, anxiety, insomnia, which of course can exacerbate all that, it could be directly related to your menopause.
Yeah, you do such a good job of that, and you're so right about it. And I don't think we can talk about it enough, quite frankly. But that is a big component of this. I mean, women all the time come up and say, like, I just don't feel like myself anymore. Like, I just don't know who I am anymore. And so those are some of those early signs. And they were definitely what I saw. And it's definitely what, drove me to walk into a doctor's office and say, like, I just don't know what's happening to me right now. Low, mood changes. Sometimes it comes from not being able to sleep right, rage. There are so many different parts of that, but it's important to distinguish whether or not you're really talking about mental health issues or you're talking about menopause. So it's important to be treated by somebody who is paying attention, willing to have the conversations, has studied some of this, whether that's being studied on their own, just so they're able to talk to you about it freely and you don't feel like you're going in there begging for some type of an answer.
Right, right. In the film, I was surprised. My doctor was cooperative about it. I don't know that he was pushing it, but I said, well, I've interviewed such and such, and they say do this. Will you just let me do this?
Yeah.
And it's like, fine, okay. But so I decided to do a patch and then the oral progesterone. And I had friends who were doing that too, who said, oh my gosh, who are now on the other side of it, are like, oh gosh, I hope they never take me off it. I'm myself again. Talk a little bit about what HRT is. What should you be asking for? Because people who don't know are going to be like, what am I asking for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'll tell you what I've done from my own experience, but hormone replacement therapy, known as now menopausal therapy or hormone therapy, is a combination of estrogen and progesterone, and those are really the two basics. There's two other components of that, which would be testosterone if you decide that you want to do that to help with low libido, and then also vaginal estrogen if you're dealing with painful sex. So those are kind of the four basics. And it's important to know what you can and can't do, whether or not you're able or a candidate for it. And, if you want to do that, 40% of women in this country, before that study we talked about earlier, were on hormone therapy. It's dropped down to 2%. So, we really have seen a drastic change of a lot of women being very afraid. I think it's important to talk to your doctor about what it is, what types, there are different types of hormone therapy. I do what you do. I do the patch, and then I do the progesterone pill, and then I do a cream. But there are oral compounds and gel and sprays. And so there are different things that might be good for, different lifestyles. For me, that works best because I can remember to change my patch twice a week. That's about all I can handle. But it's important to ask about that. Ask what is, good for you, if you're able to take it, when you would want to start something like that, and make sure that you're keeping track of those things. So you're talking to your doctor about things outside of that space as well, which would be those lifestyle changes.
Yeah, and I definitely recognize you're not a doctor, neither am I, but you interviewed a ton of doctors and
Yes,
the
yes,
experts
as
of
you
these.
do.
So just to pass it on, because I'm thinking of like all the conversations that people ask when I get off the set. What about this? What about that?
Yes.
So I'll get to the over-the-counter stuff, like what can we do over the counter if you don't want to do the prescriptions. But can you talk a little bit about testosterone? Because one of the things you talk about is, muscle loss, libido, and that they talk about in the film. It's not FDA approved for women. I have another podcast with a hormone expert here in Connecticut who said all of her patients are really thriving with testosterone. If it's something you want to try, what can you say about that?
Yeah, I didn't know if I wanted to do that initially. Full disclosure, I waited about a year and a half before I did testosterone. I use a compounded cream. It would be the 10th of what a man would use, and it would, it goes on your arm, and you interchange those two things. Every other day I do it. It's made a big difference for me. It's made a big difference for me with regard to my libido. It's made a big difference just in general for me. And I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I'm continuing to do it. I really do trust the doctor that I work with. I get my levels tested to make sure we're in the right area, in the right place. And I think that more and more women are going to be asking about it. It is not FDA approved. It is something that, I know there are a lot of big doctors out there fighting for, to make sure it is, and also to make sure that we get the black box label off of estrogen products right now, because that scares a lot of women. There's a label that is a black box warning that scares women when they bring home estrogen. And we're working a campaign with Let's Talk Menopause to try to get that label removed.
Tamsen, we're going to pause for just about 10 seconds to hear from our sponsors. When we come back, I want to tell women about some of the over-the-counter and lifestyle things they can do in our last part of the podcast. Take a listen.
Struggling with gambling? Wheeler Health's Better Choice program offers personalized support and treatment to help you regain control. Visit wheelerhealth.org to learn more and take the first step towards recovery today.
I'm speaking with Tamsen Fadal, and she has a new movie out called The M Factor. It's all about shedding the silence of menopause. She's got a new book out called How to Menopause. She used to be a journalist. I would say you're still a journalist, but you used to be a news anchor, and now you're taking a hard pivot to really educate women and empower women. And I love that you say that if you would give any advice, we should approach menopause with curiosity rather than fear, which I think is not how we've done it culturally.
No, right? We've really approached it with shame, right? And a lot of taboo and a lot of whispering, and that's just not the way to do it. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like these are really exciting years. Like, I'm very excited about this. I didn't see my mother live past 51 years old. I'm going to turn 54 this year, and I feel really, I feel like I'm really very lucky to be able to get to this part of my life and to live this long. And so I do think this is a time for curiosity. I do think it's a time to expand upon what you've always really wanted to do, and to not think that your life is over because you've hit a certain age and you just can't do it anymore, because I don't see people like that. I see this as some pretty incredible years.
Yeah, and as long as you get especially if you get everything that people need to be empowered. So we talked a little bit about hormone replacement therapy. I want to let everyone know you go much more in depth in the book about if you want to have a script to ask your doctor. Obviously, it has to be very personalized depending on your risk factors, but at least have the conversation. Before we move on to lifestyle, quickly, how do we find a menopause-informed doctor? That's been a big question of how do I find the right doctor? What if my doctor said no?
Yeah. Huge question. Well, two things. I want to say we do also have a symptom tracker for free if people want to kind of keep track of their symptoms, because I think that's important to be able to walk into a doctor's office with. So I have that on social media or on my website, tamsenfadal.com. But that is a good question. NAMS, which was the North American Menopause Society, now the Menopause Society, has a great list of menopause practitioners that are specialists in menopause. There are a lot of great telehealth organizations as well that have doctors that are specializing in menopause, whether it's Alloy Health, whether it is MIDI Health, whether it's Evernow. These are companies that have doctors. They're available. They're virtual. But, I really think that we've got to be able to do this as quickly as we can to help as many women as possible. And telehealth has definitely done that. I always say it's a really good idea to be able to talk to other people in your community and see who they're using, who they're going to. We're putting together our own list of practitioners as well on the website, because we get those same kind of questions, like, where do I go to find somebody that I can trust and will have that conversation? So that's in the works right now, because I didn't realize the need for it. And then after this film, I realized it's such an immense need. So we're going to have that ready to go as we're talking about the documentary, getting out there in the screenings, and helping support women with the book.
Yeah, just a reminder, you can actually tell your doctor about the M Factor, and they can watch it because they get continuing medical credits. Okay, back to the lifestyle things. If you want to get some supplements, and there's a lot of, we've done holistic healthcare on this show for so many times. I'll recommend Dr. Artemis Morris in Connecticut, Dr. Jennifer Stagg. They're very skilled in some natural things, but even just foods, like things to kind of boost our estrogen or things that we can be doing. What have you found in your searches that have been kind of helpful that maybe people can even go and start something today?
Yeah, there's any of those foods that are estrogen-rich foods are important. There's lists and lists of those online that you can find and incorporate into your diet. I think with regard to supplements, for me anyway, vitamin D has been a huge one. I was very, very low on vitamin D. I would walk around like half awake half the time. So that was a game changer for me. I actually had to get it compounded. So I would say really, really pay attention to vitamin D. Fiber, another huge one. You can get some of that from the diet, but not all of it. So I would say incorporate that. You talked about the smoothie earlier. I always put a scoop in there too, because I feel like I can't get enough fiber in a day by just the foods that I eat.
Like a powder fiber?
Magnesium when I sleep, and so that's helpful as well.
Did you say a scoop of powder fiber, like a sun fiber?
Powder fiber.
Yeah.
Powder
Is there a
fiber.
brand you like for women more than Metamucil, and I know that?
Oh yeah, there's a friend of mine owns a company, Morphus, and I have found hers to be great. It's just easily dissolves. I don't taste it, and anything I don't taste and I can throw into that smoothie, it works wonders.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I definitely, the magnesium is huge for sleep, and we've done a whole nother, for people, the different podcasts of just, we only have a minute, but the magnesium, have you found that can help also with just your mood and the sleep?
Yeah, absolutely it does. And it's easy to do, you know what I mean? And so it's something I know I'm doing at night. I do everything at night. I do the magnesium, I do my hormone therapy, and then I go to sleep. Oh, and 20 minutes of skincare, as you can imagine. But, I do it all at night, and I know that that's the routine. So my routine went from 2 minutes at night to falling asleep to 20 minutes, but it's working. It's working.
Okay, we've only got 30 seconds left, but I want folks to know how they can get empowered. So shout out where people, the best way to find your resources. And I'm going to work on with you after the show, getting a screening here in Connecticut.
You're awesome. Thank you for that. TamsenFadal.com, a ton of free resources there on the website. You can also follow me at Instagram at Tamsen Fadal.
Well, thank you. You look amazing and you're doing a good thing.
Back at you. Thank you so much. I look forward to it. I look forward to something in person.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to get more women informed. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching the CURES Show. You can follow me on social media at Cara Sundlin. I do like to share this content there. Have a great day, everyone. Be well.
CURES, sponsored by Wheeler Health's Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.